The Apostle Paul said that if Christ has not risen, Christianity is a sham. Many atheists agree, and will happily point to the Gospel accounts. Just how seriously should they take the claim of the resurrection? After all, aren't the accounts riddled with contradictions? How can they possibly be trusted? Now, historians do not normally conclude that just because individual accounts have apparent contradictions, that the event in question did not occur. But let us allow that to pass for now. I think the majority of the discrepancies that critics bring up can be easily resolved. One example of a so-called contradiction in the resurrection accounts pertains to the women at the tomb. How many were there? Who were they? It seems to depend on which gospel you read. To help us state this objection more forcefully, let me quote Bob Seidensticker, a popular atheist blogger on Patheos. The different accounts of the resurrection are full of contradictions. How many women came to the tomb Easter morning? Was it 1, as told in John? 2. Matthew? 3. Mark? Or more? Luke? Christians will respond to these inconsistencies by harmonizing the Gospels. That is, instead of following the facts where they lead, and considering that the Gospels might be a legend instead of history, they insist on their Christian presupposition, reject any alternatives, and bludgeon all the Gospels together like a misshapen Swiss Army knife. How many women were at the tomb? Obviously, 5 or more, our apologist will say. When John only says that Mary Magdalene came to the tomb, he is not saying that others did not come. Right? Checkmate, atheists. So is Bob right? Are believers insisting on their Christian supposition, to make sense of what we read here? Before we address this, let us look closer at the different accounts, to get a grip on the alleged contradictions just, to make sure we are understanding the problem accurately.
Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices, so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb.
On the face of it, you can see why skeptics would point to these passages to discredit the Gospels. It seems like they cannot get their details straight. But are these accounts really so contradictory, that harmonization would bludgeon these stories together like a misshapen Swiss Army knife? Not really. It is a bit amusing that Bob thinks that because John said that Mary Magdalene came to the tomb, he is implying that others were not present. All we need to do is to keep reading to see that is not the case at all. In the very next verse, John says,
So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him.
Wait a second. Where did this "we" come from? In passing, Mary Magdalene's own words clearly show that there were other women. John reporting this implies that he is well aware that there were other women at the tomb. No bludgeoning required. As Greg Koukl has famously said, never read a Bible verse. You have to keep reading, and get the context before making assumptions about the text. Otherwise, it would seem that you are either looking for a negative verdict or you are just trying to flee someone. As for the other accounts, why assume that each Gospel account is supposed to give us a complete, detailed list of the women? Luke explicitly says that there were others, that he did not name. In no Gospel did it say these were the women who came to the tomb and there was no one else. There is no contradiction here, unless you bring that assumption to the text. Selecting to name some women is not an automatic denial that there were no others. Now ask yourself the question: is assuming there is a contradiction here a responsible way to treat any historical document? To use an example, if eyewitnesses to a car crash at a busy intersection differed as to how many cars were involved, or how many people were in each car, does it follow that the car pileup is an urban legend? If I were one of the victims, I certainly would not want someone like Bob on my jury. So in summary, we do not know the exact number of women at the tomb. But what we do know is that there were at least 5. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome, Joanna, and at least one other unnamed woman. John clearly implies that there were others besides Mary Magdalene. Luke makes it obvious there were.
It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them, who told this to the apostles.
Bob's reading of the text is simply confused.